I definitely wanted to make sure we had talked about Kamala being brought into the race, um, because as we are recording this, we're heading into the week of the DNC um, convention. So maybe next week we can do a follow up. But just to get your pulse on your thoughts on like how you were feeling before she was in a race, like when Biden was still in it, like what side were you on with regards to should he drop out, should he not drop out, and how are you feeling about her now, and what do you think her chances are of freeing this nation from MAGA forever? We'll start with you, Yolanda.
Before the debate, I had some serious concerns.
Hmm.
Once the debate happened, I was terrified,
Yeah,
like immediately,
yeah,
and convinced that Trump would be back in office.
yeah. It was pretty
I
scary.
didn't have an expectation that Biden would actually step down, so I give him a ton of credit for doing it. I give the most credit to Auntie Nancy for making him step down because
Yeah, he
she's
didn't. He didn't willingly go. He
literally
got
the
forced out.
only person who got this man to step aside.
Right.
But she wasn't the only one.
She was the only one. She was the only one.
She was the only one
She
pressuring him to
was the
step
only one.
down. You don't think
No,
Obama
she
She was
was?
wasn't the
the
only one.
only one.
His
No,
donors,
he
his
was
donors were
having,
like, "Yo,
yes, 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 yes.
if you ain't got
However,
money, you ain't gonna run."
he was not listening and he was deciding he was still going to stay in
Mm-hmm.
until Auntie Nancy talked some sense into it. Believe me when I tell you,
Mm-hmm.
were it not for Nancy Pelosi, this man would have stayed in the race, regardless of all the threats from the donors and all the, because all
I
the, there's
disagree.
plenty other people in his camp or whatever who were telling him you can still do it and don't listen to the pundits and this happened in 2012 and blase blase blase, and people in his inner circle were not telling him the real,
Right.
regardless of whoever it was who got him out. I was very relieved to hear that he got out.
Yeah.
I'm I was even more relieved to see the very swift coalescing of support and energy and excitement behind Kamala Harris, because the next question was going to be, thank God he's out, but what are we going to do about a nominee, because we still have a challenge to
Right.
face beating this man. And depending upon how all that went down, could have really impacted the success, strategy and trajectory of doing that. So it could have turned into a whole nasty thing. It could have gone a whole different way.
Yeah.
Luckily, I was actually really, really surprised to see how quickly everything coalesced behind Kamala. Although, like, hindsight 2020, it makes sense. But I did not have that expectation that it would.
Right.
And, like I see and hear all this stuff, of some opposition to Kamala and her. It's like there are no perfect candidates. Like, what
Right.
are we talking about? There are no perfect candidates.
Right.
And, from a standpoint of qualifications for the office and all of those things, she certainly stacks up with a whole host of people who've come before, including the fact that she's
Absolutely.
now sat right next, literally right next to the president for the last 4 years and seen how this is done, which I think is owing to the fact, to much of her, how she's presenting very comfortably in the role, because she knows what it is. There's a difference between aspiring to something great, something that's hard to do,
Right.
and believing you can do it, and then actually being in immersed in that situation and shit coming up and being like, oh, okay, I see how this is, I see how this works, I see what the day to day is, I'm actually doing it, I can do it now. Mind you, she's been the VP, she hasn't had to be in, but she's been there watching, I've been in this situation before where I've, you know, something new, something brand new. For a perfect example was when I transitioned from film to television, and I had a lot of people telling me that I couldn't do it because I hadn't done it before, and blase blase blase. And then I was like, people tell you that shit enough, and you're like, oh, well, I don't know. Like, what is it? What is this thing? I don't know. Maybe I haven't done it before. Maybe I can't. And then being in it, and I'm like, or watching other people do some of these things, and I'm like, I absolutely can do that, and I can do it very well and run circles around the people who are actually in the seats doing it. So, like, I think
Right.
she now has that behind her. Everybody's super excited. I think the vote that we need from the younger generation, we are now picking up much better because none of them wanted to vote for Joe Biden.
Right.
So, and that maybe not necessarily want to vote for Trump, but it could have meant, they weren't enthused enough to go and make their votes. And it's still going to be a hard election. We need every single last vote we can get. So I'm
Yeah.
happy to see what's happening, and I'm super, super thankful that Joe stepped aside, because otherwise I think we would have lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joseph, what do you think? What were you thinking before?
I take a different tack than her. I just think Kareem, shout out to the Wu-Tang Clan, cash rules everything around me. And I think it's almost borders naive to think that finances weren't the ultimate deciding factor. If all those donors say, hey, we're pulling our money out, we're not going to give you another dime because we don't believe in this candidate. We think he's not qualified or not able to stand up to the challenge because of what we're seeing him present. That, he's given us a lot of pause. I don't feel comfortable donating millions of dollars to someone who's going to ultimately lose to Donald Trump. If you can't beat Donald Trump in a debate, factual, whatever, or even hang with him, there's a problem. And so then on the flip side, Kamala I knew she was going to be the one because she had $250 million in the bank, that money they had raised. You tell me a new candidate's going to come in and they're going to have to raise $250 million? Come on, dude. It's just money. It's money talks in this culture. And that's not to say she's the best candidate, worst candidate, whatever. I agree with Yolanda. Like, there's no perfect candidate. So, but what I did see was once all that dust died down, everybody's very excited about Kamala. Now the next thing I'm kind of worried about is that, and I'm way more. I think I'm more. I don't fall in line with the Democrats. I don't just the Democrats said this, so let me just
Right.
go hook, line, and sinker with what they're saying. I'm not saying you guys like that, whatever. I just know I'm even more conspiratorial and out there and kooky, whatever. But my fear now is that, I try to give her time because she hasn't even officially been nominated as the candidate technically for the Democrats. She will obviously this week with the Democratic convention, but a lot of people are complaining on the right, and independents are complaining that she hasn't given any interview. In other words, she hasn't had to stand up to hard questions, so no one really understands how she's going to differ from Biden, which to me is like a straw man. It's like the Republicans are grasping at things to complain. She's on the Biden ticket, for God's sake. She's not going to be that much more radical than Joe Biden. She was a running mate, but she'll have her own agenda, her own ideas.
Right.
And so people want her to speak on it so they can attack her. That's what they want. They want her to speak on something so they could, level their attacks against her. I get that too. I mean, because we're able to level attacks against Trump right now for the things that he said and the interviews he's given, but she really hasn't given any interviews. She's gone out and done speeches and rallies, but no one's been able to push back on her. So it'll be interesting after this week to see what she does, because I've kind of got the feeling that she's ducking and dodging interviews, which is good. I think she should play the game, homie. Play the game.
Yeah.
Get where you need to. Yeah. Do what you need to do, and then when your interviews come up, be prepared, because she should know the questions are going to be coming at her, because people have been saying, well, we don't know about this, we don't know about that. So she should have a game plan for the things they're going to ask. And then also, I really look forward to the debates, because I think she's going to kill it in the debates.
Yeah.
I think also Walls is going to tear up JD Vance. So I'm looking forward to the debates, because then you're going to see a stark difference between what they're saying. As long as she can support herself. Because I never really, I think that she was unfairly. I think the border was the albatross around her neck. when she was running for as a candidate for president back in before 2020, I know she talked about the border, but that wasn't like her main thing. Oh, I'm gonna be the. But then when she got in the Biden administration, they threw this albatross. Oh, you can take care of this. So I'm sure she's like, oh shit, this is nobody wanted to touch that, and to put her in charge of it, she's not even the president. I just felt like that. I think she's garnered some legitimate criticism because she was the czar. She should have went down to the border. She didn't. So when she had that left her whole interview, it's like, well, what do you? She hadn't been. It had been like 100 days or something. She hadn't been to the border. It's like, wow, Kamala, come on, you got it. But at the same time, I felt like it was foisted on her, and that really wasn't a major talking point of her agenda when she was running for president. So we'll see. We'll see what she comes up. I'm curious to see what she comes up with.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. You mentioned there being a stark difference between the two, because I always feel like I'm in a Game of Thrones episode when stuff like this happens, and you feel like everything. Remember that episode with who's the dude that's in the dude that's in Last of Us. He's going to be
yeah,
Gladiator 2. Can you Google it?
Now that you ask me, I'm like,
I know.
Yo, who is that? You got your computer up?
She's looking at.
I'll look.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
the guy from Mandalorian.
Right. He played Oberyn and
yeah,
and Game of
Pedro
Thrones.
Pascal.
Game of Thrones.
Pedro Pascal.
Pedro. Yeah, Pedro. Thank you.
I
We're getting old, y'all.
I always think I know. I always think about the episode where he's playing Oberyn and he's fighting the mountain and he's winning and he's getting a little too cocky.
Yep.
I always felt like everything's going great. I just wanted to stay like that. But I just want to think positivity out in the universe. I'm just
right.
You know what I'm saying?
To your point, Ron, that's the whole interview she should have been prepared for. And that was a big, giant fumble on her part. When he asked, well, when Kamala Harris sat down with Lester Holt right after she, it was like 100 and something days into the presidency, he's like, well, everybody's talking about the border. What are your plans? And she started talking about it and she's like, well, have you been there? She said, I don't understand what you're asking. She hadn't been to the border yet. And I'm like, come on. It's just like, that was an easy layup. And she whiffed it.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I'm that worried.
Those are new, but
if she does that a long time after she'd been in administration, and she had not been once to the border, but speaking on it, and you're supposed to be the one in charge of it. That's worrisome. So
I think
I'm just saying is that
I would not in this moment hold that against her, because you don't know what's going on behind the scenes about like what they're telling her that they want her to do. If she's not getting answers and she's been put in a position where she can't be effective, and now she's on national television being asked questions, she doesn't want to misstep by saying something.
Right.
She can't say, these motherfuckers haven't told me what I'm supposed to be doing. Or what they want, what's their agenda. She can't say that. So 100 days, it's like after a certain amount of time, yes. And you can say 100 days, she should have been ready. But time. I mean, that's a long time. You still, I'm not going to
I'm not even saying to be
say,
no.
That's 3 months.
Be better prepared. No, be better prepared. I think it was actually more than
3 months. Days. 3 months.
Yolanda, I think it was more,
and also COVID was happening.
I think it was more.
I think the focus was a lot on a lot of other things.
Right. I totally get that. All I'm just saying is that I'm not even saying she had to go. I'm just saying being better prepared for those answers is the thing that gave me pause.
And I think she will be.
Because she's going to have more interviews.
Well, she's clearly better prepared now.
Yeah, I think her team.
Okay. I hope so.
Me too. I think what's crazy to me, though, is that there's even a chance that Trump can win. Like, what does it say about this country?
Yeah.
That this man, 34 convictions, all the things against him, up against someone like Kamala, even has a possibility of winning. Like, we should be like, I mean, this should be like, we're talking about Kobe and the other basketball player. This should be like Kobe.
LeBron? You mean LeBron?
LeBron, right. It should be like, it should be like Kobe against me. Like, if I was going up, you wouldn't even think about it. But the fact that he even has a possibility of winning is like wild to me. Um, but I'm putting out there that especially if she kills it in the debate, and there's no reason why the man does not know anything. He can't stay disciplined.
And she'll
She
check him on his lies. So check,
and
which Biden did not
she'll
do
check him on his lies.
in real
She's a
time.
trained
Yes.
Yeah.
she's a trained prosecutor. She knows. I don't know if you saw the video of the heckler, the who was in
Yeah.
one of her audience. She knows how to
Just
handle.
recently, right? Like just
Yes.
like last week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like a week or so ago. She knows how to handle herself because he's without the ability to actually present any kind of plan because we know he doesn't have one. I mean, this project 2025, but he's trying to distance himself. So outside of that,
Right.
he doesn't have anything. He's going to try to rattle her. He's going to say things. He he's going to try to get under her skin, and we know that she knows how to handle herself. I think after that debate, I feel
Yeah, it's
confident.
interesting because a lot of the commentators are, you know, noting how his shtick has gotten old now. Like
Oh
he's
yeah,
got the same old shtick. So like
he's still complaining about Biden.
it doesn't land anymore. Like it's
Yeah,
not, it's an old routine. It's like
like
even if he
him.
comes with the nicknames or the lies or whatever,
Right.
it
Right.
just kind of doesn't, the jokes don't, his shit doesn't land.
And JD Vance is a joke. Him
Yeah.
But
against
the other
Tim
thing
Walz.
is though, I remember I come from an era like when I first voted, I voted for I was in the my first election was when I believe it was Bush going against Bush Senior in '88. I think it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a Mondale that he was running against and he
I
beat or
think
whatever.
so.
And that
No,
was
Bush
Oh,
so
Senior only had one as an incumbent. He only had Bill Clinton.
right, but who was but no, I because Bill beat him.
Yeah, Bill beat him, and then he
Well,
was
I'm
done.
saying
He was one
yeah,
and
but that
done.
was in '92. In '88, Bush won.
Oh yeah,
Someone ran against him, which was Mondale, I
that
believe.
sounds right.
yeah. I think it was
Remember
Walter
when he got
Mondale.
in the
Yeah,
10? Yeah, that's
yeah,
when
yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah, yeah,
88.
yeah,
Clinton won when he won the first time.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying,
No, it wasn't Mondale. It was Dukakis, wasn't it?
just sorry, thank you. Yeah, I think so. Mondale got out because he got in that tank and had that
Yeah.
bad press thing or whatever. But the point I'm bringing up, the point I
Yeah.
was trying to get to before you sidetracked me was at that time, VPs were kind of like a joke. They're kind of like the spare. And then
Right.
over the years, it's like everybody's putting all this weight on VPs, but they really have to kind of curtail their agenda to the president's whim. And
Right.
I think that the VPs have become more important of recent because the presidents have been so bad.
Yeah.
In other words,
Well, and also people realize that if you have a president like George W. Bush and a person who's really behind, who's actually doing the presidency
Dick Cheney.
behind the scenes, Dick Cheney, it's like more important.
Right.
It's like it's like, oh, we
Because
need to
before
pay
that,
attention
even
who
before
this
I did,
is
yeah,
if the presidency's going to cede
exactly.
all this stuff
It
to
wasn't
his
like that. To all my
person.
young
Yeah.
viewers, you go back into the 80s and 70s, it was like, the VP was just like an afterthought. It was like, okay,
Right.
this is someone who could be, he was a governor, he could be presidential, whatever. If something, God forbid, were to happen to our president. But there wasn't a lot of thought into it. But to Yolanda's point, when Darth Cheney came in, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, we taking this a little bit more serious.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm just bringing that up for historical context because now it seems like
Well, at that point, I think we have a great, I was actually very heartened by her choice of Tim Walz as her running mate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once I learned more about him, I was like, oh,
it was an excellent choice, which shows excellent judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because I was kind of leaning towards is it Bashir?
Shiro.
No, I was
Shapiro. No, he wanted Bashir from Kentucky.
I was leaning towards Andy Bashir as who would be good because he kind of has that that square jaw, that good looking white man that I know America really likes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think Tim Walz is a great pick.
Small town. He's a football coach,
he's
but also LGBTQ plus. He's got some interesting bona fides. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the whole thing about him with the whole his military service is ridiculous. I think
Yes.
that's a loser for the Republicans. Like, dude,
Yep.
come on,
Yeah, such
this
a
dude
loser.
They
spent a
don't have
quarter of a
anything.
century in the
You've already
National
done
Guard. It's like,
this. You've already swift
Right.
boated. It's like stupid.
yeah,
Shut up and
Yeah.
it
go
ain't
One
gonna
away.
thing I've
work.
been saying
Yeah,
is that like this is the first time in 12 years where people can feel like they're not voting against something, that they're voting for something.
yeah,
Because in 20 and 16, I think for a lot of people, like in 16, they felt like it was the lesser of two evils. In 20, I don't think people were really, again, I felt like people voted for Biden because he wasn't Trump, not necessarily because they were like so for Biden. I think
Yeah.
this is one where people feel like
right. He
they're
was like a
actually
stabilizing factor at the time. That, hey, let's get back. Let's get somebody who
right.
knows how to run the country. Let's knows all the politics and just
Yeah,
stabilize us. And he also implied that he was just that was what he was going to be, a transitional president.
right.
But then that kind of flew out the window.
Yeah, he
We
tasted
didn't
that.
have a primary. We did not have a primary, so a lot of people weren't able to vote for who they might have wanted to pick besides
Yeah,
Biden.
yeah. Well,
Which
I think it's amazing
We
that
had a primary in 20.
no, we didn't have it right, but we didn't have a primary now this time.
Yeah, yeah.
for
We
If,
this
didn't have a
if
primary
yeah,
Biden's
this time.
saying I'm going to be a
Yes.
transitional
Yes.
president, I'm going to
Yes.
step out,
Right.
but then he did everything,
Yes.
and the
Exactly.
Democrats,
Yeah.
all which it was a big
well,
bone of contention with me.
I think it's amazing that our first woman president is going to be a woman of color.
Hopefully,
Yes.
Yeah.
from you,
Yes.
I'm
yeah,
speaking it out, man. Speaking it out.
yeah, I know. Hey, put it in
And
the
I love
universe,
that
baby.
she's
Get that
both,
energy.
black and
Well,
Southeast
she's only been
Asian.
Indian.
South Asian,
I
yeah,
mean, I've never
that's what she
heard.
said.
Yeah, she only recently became black.
Yeah, she
Apparently,
just became black.
Even when she's pledging AKA, she was like,
right?
apparently she's an Indian
And
AKA player.
how about the like
Stupid. And
some of
Brooklyn,
the
Oakland.
some of the like serendipity of the fact that Inauguration Day in 2009 fell on MLK Day, and Inauguration Day in 2025 falls on MLK Day.
Oh, I didn't know. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's dope.
Nice.
Both of them, though, like imagine like this enormous, enormous, milestone and this, so many hundreds of years of this country's history and like
Hmm.
what it is to be a minority person growing up in this country, particularly black,
Yep.
and getting to this office. And in both of these cases, their moms aren't there to see it happen.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Both their parents
Yep.
Right.
in this case. I mean, God willing, she gets there. Like
Yeah.
their parents, they're not there to see them do it.
Yep.
Oh, well, good stuff, friends. Good stuff. So let's watch the DNC this week, and next week let's have a recap of it. See what we
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds good.